Reading on the same lines, I was reading an article by Nouriel Roubini, who is the a professor at the Stern School of Business at New York University. Geez, I'm feeling so Lani here. I tell you, I'm reading things from New York University. And he started the article by saying the risk of global currency and trade wars is rising, with most economies now engaged in competitive devaluations. All are playing a game that some must lose. Who is going to lose?
Well, ultimately, I think the point that he was trying to make is that not every country is able to keep up with the depreciative policies that are being implemented in the likes of the US, the UK, and Europe. Mm-hmm. So what he's effectively saying there is that countries and many emerging markets fall into this basket. Brazil, Turkey, South Africa, some of the Asian emerging markets, Australia, for example, falls into this category as well. All of these countries tend to find their currency strengthening, not because of anything that their economies are doing right, so much as what's going on abroad. And so these huge developed economies are debasing their currencies, they're devaluing their currencies, and ultimately to try and boost their exports. In so doing, the currencies of these other economies strengthen, and it impacts their exports negatively, and they tend to be the losers if you put a lot of emphasis on exports being the primary driver of growth.
So basically what you're saying here, George, is that come next week when the MPC sits down, they can look at all of these facts and figures and the research and all the rest of it. There's not a hell of a lot they can do.
Yeah, I mean to a degree. They certainly can reduce interest rates again, and we're hoping that they will. We believe there's scope for at least another 1% worth of interest rate cuts going forward over the next 6 to 9 months. We think that makes South African interest-bearing assets less attractive to foreigners, so that in and of itself might help a little bit. We believe that it can reduce the cost of capital in this environment where households are trying to pay down their debt levels. Reducing the interest rate can sometimes help. It frees up more money to try and pay down those debt levels if people are utilizing the opportunity prudently. So there is a bit that they can do. But, you know, the Reserve Bank's one aspect of it. I think moving into October as well, we've also got the budget, the mini budget that gets produced. And in there might be some questions about, or some guidance given by Pravin Gordhan on issues of exchange controls and whether or not we're likely to see some of those abolished.
Do you think he will drop them? I mean, realistically, if he drops them, how many South Africans have got 4 million rand in their backsky just to send offshore?
For sure, not that
it's
many.
It's not going to happen.
No, and in any case, if you have a look at what's currently allowed to be taken offshore, those amounts are not being utilized at the moment. So I'm not sure that in and of itself will have a negative impact on the rand. In fact, could have the opposite. If it's easy to take money back out of the country, people might find it comforting to invest in the first place.
Yeah. Mike Schuster, I think, made the point on Business Tonight on Monday night this week, saying that we are a savings poor country.
Yeah.
Having said that, and everyone calling for rate cuts, what happens to the pensioners who have saved money and are now earning a pittance compared to what they should be? Does this not raise the argument for a rates discrepancy? You know, people over 65 have a fixed rate of 6% on their earnings. I don't know. It's something, I'm throwing balls in the air now.
Yeah. Jeremy, it's a very important question. There's two answers to that. Firstly, you don't have to be permanently invested in interest-bearing money market instruments. Second thing is that interest earned always needs to be taken against a backdrop of inflation. So as long as inflation is sitting below the interest earned, by and large, you're still earning a return that's higher than what effectively the price pressures in your life should be increasing by. There's huge debates on whether or not inflation is as accurate as it should be, but the point is that there are ways and means to mitigate against that. But a very important point, by reducing interest rates too far, you do prejudice savers. And future investment is ultimately driven by a pool of savings. So you need to be careful when playing this interest rate game. At the moment, they might reduce interest rates because there's rand connotations, there's growth connotations and the like. But there comes a point in time where that does have to turn. It can't stay at these levels forever. The Reserve Bank ultimately will probably use inflation as their guideline.
You see, this is where this whole money and economic thing gets me, because I listen to what you say and I can understand what you're saying, but it's all sort of swings and roundabouts, because to me, and tell me if I'm right here, economic growth equals a trade deficit growth, which would equal rand weakness.
Yeah.
So then you're saying we need to grow economically, but
yes.
what we're doing is weakening our rand. So it's sort of about like being a POM and sitting on the dole. Why should I work? Because I'm not going to get a hell of a lot out of this.
And that's exactly the point that I was making right in the beginning. We need to get away from the fixation of the currency to focus more on the productive base of the South African economy, because that productive base will be there through thick and thin.
That's what's going to make the change.
If it's fundamentally sound, it'll be there no matter what the exchange rate is. And the exchange rate should be looked at more as a balancing mechanism in the economy rather than as a driver of growth or not.
So we've got to look long term, and there we've got to look at productivity.
Correct.
Push the envelope. Email in from, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name, in Livingston in Zambia. Jeremy, last week on your show, Wayne McCurry said by year end, the best performing African currency against the US dollar would be the ZAR, South African Rand. Push the envelope to George. What will it be by year end? I
hate these questions.
Yeah, they're not easy ones to do.
No.
This also, I saw somewhere that Goldman Sachs was saying within the next year, the Rand could be at 620.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Well, they've finally caught up to our view. In fact, we were calling a 650.
You've been punting this for ages.
For a long time, yeah. We've actually just re-looked at our forecasts and we've lowered them considerably further. So where we were looking at a trough in this dollar-rand exchange rate of around about the 650 mark, we've lowered that significantly, and we're thinking that it could go as low as levels of around 570 to 550.
Whoa!
So that being our trough level, if you had to ask me for my best guesstimate for dollar-rand end of the year, we'd probably be looking something in the region of 650, but it would be in keeping with our stronger rand bias, which we believe remains intact for a long time to come, and that ultimately I think companies, individuals need to get used to this idea that the rand might in fact surprise in its strength and remain a lot more resilient than people anticipate.